I'm Corbett Wall with USDA Livestock and Grain Market News, here with your weekly feeder and stocker cattle market summary for the week ending February the 24th. We had feeder cattle selling $1 to $4 higher across the nation. Stocker cattle and calves selling $3 to $10 higher, and that's pretty well across the nation too, but most gains on your lighter weight cattle seen in the southeast. All these big gains coming in after last week's record fed cattle trade, which broke the record that was set last time there in late November. This time it was up from 128 to 129.50 live and 203 on a dress basis, where we had a 5-area weekly weighted average steer price of 128.03. So that was broke the other record by quite a bit right there. So new record high fed cattle trade, and that just give a shot in the arm to use feeder cattle prices. There we said the full advance seen in the southeast on these lightweight calves. Most of your orders for these lightweight calves come in so many dollars per head. So any of these buyers of these lightweight turnout cattle are scrambling and trying to get lighter and lighter and lighter, trying to keep those orders, filled under what the guys want them for. And this week down at Okeechobee, Florida, we could catch some flack for always talking about those Nebraska markets. Well, this week we're talking about Okeechobee, Florida, where their 200 to 300 pound steers and bulls sold with a high up to 285. And the entire 200 to 300 pound steer and bull weight range there averaged over $2.50 a pound. So they're trying to cheapen up by putting those lighter ones on there to send out west, because it's going to be an early spring, and guys are trying to get their grass cattle put together if they hadn't already done it. Now, a lot of us are still trying to get used to $2 a pound calves. I know I am. It just doesn't sound right sometimes on saying 2 something instead of $1 something. But now I guess we need to start thinking about $3, because we're working these, and I realize they're just featherweight 200 to 300 pound steer calves, but maybe it's coming. Who knows? But start bracing yourself for $3 on some of these peewees. But we had a lot of warm temperatures coming up. It just seems like winter's fading away on us. Early this week we saw warm temperatures up in the 70s down in the southern half of the United States, but up in late in the week, where we had a little snowstorm come across Nebraska and Iowa there, and they're glad to get the moisture up there. It wasn't horrible. Won't stick around too long, but all signs show that we're going to have an early spring. That wheat pastures really popped down in those hard red winter regions there, and it's green and good, which might make you think we're going to have a lot of graze out wheat, but I wouldn't bank on a whole lot of people grazing out that precious wheat. If they're true farmers, they're going to try to make a crop out of it if they can keep along getting some moisture. And a lot of those guys down there, even the ones that run cattle, instead of grazing that out, they're going to cut them some wheat hay and start stocking their hay stocks back up, because just so short of hay, and that wheat hay bring a good price, and you may end up making more money on your ground by doing that than you did by trying to make a crop or grazing that out. But this light inventories of all cattle is making effect everywhere. It's really starting to hit home on this slaughter cow and bull market, where pretty much nationwide we're seeing these high dressing, empty, heavy muscled, good straight meaty cows and bulls selling up and over $1 a pound, all across the country, seeing up, over $1.10 on some of these big heavy muscle bulls. And we're well ahead of grilling season. We don't normally see that settle in until we start getting into summer. So who knows where we're going to go on that cow and bull market. This week had the cattle on feed report on Friday. Not real bullish, but still on the strong side. The on-feed totals come in just about where they thought they would, at 102.1% of a year ago. Placements were slightly less than they thought at 97.8%, and marketings were quite a bit more than they thought there was at 102.4% of the same period a year ago. It took a long time for trade to break loose. If you'll notice, you guys that like to speculate on these ag commodities, a pretty good bet is shorting nearby live cattle contracts on a Thursday. Seems like every week we're waiting until late Friday to trade. There's always a bunch of resistance on Thursday, thinking that they're going to get the market lower. And it seems like on Thursdays, if you watch, those nearby contracts on the fed cattle are lower. They were quite a bit lower on this Thursday. Then Friday come out and the feedlots didn't blink. So then here comes the market back up, and we finally had a little bit of trade break loose early trade, late afternoon. Steady in Kansas at 128. Texas still wanting 129. A lot of Kansas still wanting 129. Western Nebraska wanting more than 128. But then eastern Nebraska sold several cattle $3 lower in the meat at $2 even. This week's regional weighted average prices in the north central states, 800 to 900 pound steer this week cost you $150.94 compared to $148.76 last week and $123.66 a year ago. In the south central states, 600 to 700 pound steer cost you $167.06 compared to $165.86 last week and $136 even a year ago. And down in the southeast, where we saw those huge gains, 400 to 500 pound steer this week was over $8 higher than it was just a week ago. This week, a 400 to 500 pound steer in the southeast, and I'm talking about the entire southeast, all across those little sales, in your southeastern states. A 400 to 500 pound steer on the average $193.21 compared to $184.87 last week and $145.72 a year ago. That wraps up our summary for this week. Check out our website, marketnews.usda.gov. From the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri. We'll talk to you next week.